Hi, George here.
And I'm MJ.
We're here with JustOneDram.com for another whiskey review. Today we're doing a side-by-side review of two of the current releases of the Stagg Jr. from Buffalo Trace. We've got a bottle of the 132.1 proof.
And my bottle is 128.7 proof.
They are barrel proof and unfiltered. Aged for, as they say on the back here, where is it? Nearly a decade. It is the junior version of the George T. Stagg, again from obviously Buffalo Trace Distillery.
It's pretty evident that it's unfiltered, because we were looking at some of these bottles earlier, and they have a little bit of sediment that's kind of rested at the bottom.
Chunks of wood and barrel and dust, and
so it's a real deal.
Some absolutely incredible color on it because it has not been proofed down. This is as real as it gets, so to speak. Anyway. Pour a little.
So, like we said before, George is going to be testing the higher proof version, and I'll be testing the lower proof.
Not to call it low proof.
Yeah. We obviously tried both before doing the video, and there's a huge difference between the two, which is
there really is, and it's quite interesting that there's such a difference between, well, proof and obviously barrels that they came from.
Yeah. So
anyway,
definitely wanted to look at each of them side by side. So, but like we said before, the color in them it's rather dark. It's kind of a testament to how long they've aged for, kind of longer than a normal bourbon would. And
part of the reason for the color being so dark is not only is it from the aging, but most of the time spirit, regardless of age, has been given quite a bit of water to get it down to whatever the bottling proof is, be it 80, 86, 92 proof, whatever it is. It takes water to get it to there, so it dilutes it. Kind of like pee.
That's very true. You're not wrong on that fact.
Anyway, fun fact, it is 3 o'clock in the morning right now while we're filming this video.
And we may or may not have tried a few of these.
So excuse any potty humor. Anyway, let's get this show on the road. For the higher proof version, not quite as potent on the nose as you'd expect it to be. Definitely get a lot of heat, a lot of alcohol, but it's not as offensive as you'd think something of such high proof would be. A lot of caramel, vanilla, toasty, rich, oaky notes. Corn is really hammered down to a tame level of aromatics.
I definitely get a lot of the vanilla in it, on the nose anyway. Like you said, the corn is not super prevalent. It's been very mellowed out. I mean, it's there. You can definitely smell it, but it's very mellow. Definitely do get some of that alcohol burn on the nose. It's not off-putting by any sense, but
something I actually noticed though is the higher proof, the one I have, has a little less of that heat than the lower proof for some reason.
Yes, I agree. It's kind of backwards, but it's the way it is.
It is what it is. SOCKS.
That's alright.
It's a very thick, full-bodied whiskey here. Again, not as much heat as you would expect it to have. Then again, if you're very used to drinking higher proof whiskey, you will of course not feel the kick as someone who is not would. Because I have seen people try this, and it sounds like they're being resuscitated after drowning. So, something of this high of proof, if you're used to it, this does not have the burn you would expect it to. If you're not quite accustomed to drinking lots of whiskey, proceed with caution. But again, it's very full-bodied, it's rich, it's got tons and tons and tons of barrel character flavors to it. Like tons of toastiness, caramel, vanilla, a little hint of coconut in there.
Yeah, like George said, the first time that I drank this whiskey, it took me by surprise and kind of kicked my ass. But the more I drank it, the more I've kind of gotten used to it. It's strong, it definitely is. But there are a lot of flavors to it, and it really is very smooth. Particularly the higher proof version of it. One thing that I noticed while drinking this whiskey is you take that sip, you feel the burn up front, then it kind of mellows out into all those flavors that he was talking about, kind of that oaky notes, a lot of, I taste a lot of corn in it, and it rolls back, it's kind of viscous, it has this really smooth mouthfeel to it, and then, you know, as it swallows, it kind of has this delayed, kind of a couple moments, and then you feel it slowly coming down. And I really like that. It's a really cool feeling, something a little different that you don't find in some of the normal proof whiskeys, which is pretty cool.
Some other characteristics you get from it would be a definite roasted corn, like corn on the cob that you grilled, like that caramelized corn, that caramelized burnt. Fresh corn from the cob. It's got some toffee, candy notes.
Yes. It is kind of on the sweeter side.
It has a lot of sweetness to it.
Yeah.
As far as differences between the two bottles in terms of flavor profile, what do you get in that was out in this one?
I think it's more of what did I get in this that I didn't get in the lower proof. The higher proof is definitely, it's more smooth, has less of that alcohol tinge to it, but there's a lot more flavor, a lot more floralness to the higher proof.
Yeah, definitely.
That you don't get in the lower proof, which is kind of odd, but I mean that's...
Well, with more alcohol comes more flavor, because again, generally speaking, lower proof means more water. In this case, it's
more flavor profile.
Well, right. It's more concentrated. It's like, think about it this way. Have you ever had orange juice concentrate without the water? Just eat the concentrate, how densely sweet and full of orange flavor it is? This is essentially bourbon concentrate. So it just got that really big, concentrated, extracted flavor to it. Anyway, something I don't often do, but I think is a must-do with this whiskey. Get yourself some water, and just a single drop to start. Swirl it around a little, get it all up in there, and give it another nose. Immediately, it opens up. There's some bright floral notes, brighter corn.
Yeah, I was a little skeptical when George busted out the glass of water for this.
Big toasted coconut.
But it really does make a huge difference, especially the more times, the more time elapses, the time you let it sit, the more you swirl it, get it all encompassed in there. It really does kind of just open things up a little bit.
Even with only just one drop.
Mm-hmm.
The palate mellows out immediately, even from just that one drop. It's a warm, campfirey, just toasty. It's just really nice, it's delicate, but with a strong, delicate with a strong backbone, if that makes any sense whatsoever. It just opens up. It's more lively. It's bright. It's brighter, I would say, instead of that consolidated, condensed, concentrated punch of extracted whiskey flavor. It's a lighter, brighter, more well-rounded experience. Of course, if you let it sit, it'll change even more over time, but a couple more drops of water. 1, 2, we'll make it 3 more, if that last drop will go. And a vigorous swirl. I'm actually starting to get more of that burn on the nose, actually, with more water. Like how we notice the difference between the higher and lower proof.
Right.
It actually becomes a little harder on the nose in terms of the heat. But it's more floral, more light corn notes. The more water added to it, the more it just reminds me of just Buffalo Trace bourbon.
Yeah. I get a lot of that too. It tastes like reminiscent of that.
It tastes like It tastes like old, concentrated Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, this is not the kind of bourbon that you're going to just pour yourself a little glass and sit by the fire and read a book. This is not it. This is the just killed a wild boar and now you're roasting it over the open fire and you're a real man's man. This is the kind of bourbon that you're going to want to have in that situation. So,
I would actually have to disagree. I'd say this is more of a, well, I wouldn't say sit down with a book. This is more of a sit down and focus on the bottle itself. Focus on what you've poured yourself and focus on the depth and the complexity of the flavors and the concentration of the flavors and how it changes over time just being open. How a little water changes and evolves it, and how it changes and evolves over time with that amount of water, what more water will do. I think it's more of a journey you take to delve into getting to know whiskey, well, bourbon specifically, a little better, to get to know those different nuances at different proofs and finding what you find to be the ideal volume of alcohol in your drink. And just finding new things with every sip. Like, for instance, now that there's been some water, and there's a little more time elapsed since I put the additional water in. Let's see if I can find anything new. Still a lot of the corn, some heat from the alcohol, but getting baked fruit notes, baked apple, baked pear, figs, dates.
Yeah, I mean, these are definitely complex bourbons. Definitely worth your time sitting back and kind of evaluating what you've purchased. And it really struck me the difference between the two. I mean, they're the same product, just two different proofs, and it's a huge divide between the two.
It definitely is. That all being said, if you couldn't tell, I think we're pretty unanimous in saying the 132.1. Yes, the 132.1 is definitely the one to get over the
128.7.
That being said, I would not pass over the 128.7.
Oh no, absolutely not. It's definitely worth a try.
Definitely
worth a try. But you know, if you have the option, I would go with higher proof, along with George. But they're both great products by all means. And
so, what do you think in terms of a mark for the lower proof?
The lower proof, I would put this at about an 88 for me.
I would say higher proof, about the same, maybe an 89, 90-ish. I'm a little torn.
Yeah.
Because it's very, very good. It's not overly expensive. This was about 50-ish, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was $49.99. A little hard to come by, especially if you're in upstate New York, where it's the worst place in the world for allocated products. Whereas in other parts of the country, this is probably sitting in mass quantities on the shelf. Anyway. Yeah, I'll give it an 89. I think 89 is a solid mark for this.
Yeah. Not my favorite whiskey by all means. It's not the kind of style that I'm mostly into, but definitely enjoyed it. Kind of knocked me on my ass a little bit when I first tried it, but I've really come to appreciate it and enjoy it. So definitely had a great experience with the two of them. So
my first impression of it was the exact opposite. I was not knocked on my ass. My first thought was, wow, it's a hell of a lot smoother than I thought it would be.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It really is smooth and a lot easier to drink than you would think. So
a wonderful whiskey adventure that, if you have the opportunity, I say to take.
Absolutely.
But take your time with it.
Absolutely.
Anyway, it is now well into the 3 o'clock hour.
Yeah.
And with that, I will say, if you liked the video, great. Like it, subscribe, leave a comment saying what you thought of the video, what you thought of the Stagg, what you thought of the
Stags.
The Stagg Jr. If you have had it, what you'd like to see reviewed next. Find Facebook, Twitter, justonedram.com, Instagram, all that social media nonsense. Have a great day. Cheers.